So you want to know how to calculate how many calories you need to lose weight. You want to know what the magic deficit is that's going to finally let you reach your goals. But what if I told you there's something even more important than calories that you should be tracking instead of that magic number? And tracking this one thing helped me lose over 14 kilos and has helped other women as well, all while putting fat loss on easy mode. What you believe right now is probably that calories in needs to be less than your calories out. That equals weight loss. Simply eat less than what you burn and you will lose weight. And look, that's technically not wrong. But here's what no one tells you. Your body doesn't process all of these calories in the same way. What matters more than the number of calories in is what those calories do to your insulin. So today I'm going to be breaking down something far more important than simply calculating how many calories that you need for a deficit, because let's be real, you've probably already calculated that a million times already. I know I have with those online calculators and it still didn't work. So instead, let's spend your time today, because I don't want to waste your time talking about why the three macros, protein, fat, and carbs, hit your body completely differently. Why insulin is actually the boss of fat storage, not your calorie deficit. How stress, sleep, and muscle mass can also change everything about what you should eat, and about how to find your personal carb tolerance, because mine is wildly different from an athlete and yours probably is too. For my first point, I'm going to talk about your macronutrients. You probably are already aware of what these are. We've got protein, fats, carbs. These each trigger a different hormonal response. Why is that such a long F? So these trigger a different hormonal response because your body uses them for completely different things. And one of them spikes insulin like crazy. That one. So misunderstanding the impact of these key macros play in your body is why counting calories fails insulin-resistant women, unfortunately. And very quickly, insulin is at the core of metabolic diseases such as PCOS. So even if you think you don't have an insulin problem, but you've been diagnosed with something else like PCOS, it's very likely that you do have insulin resistance to some degree. All right, so protein builds muscle. It also helps repair your tissue after breaking them down. It also keeps you feeling fuller for longer, and it has minimal impact on insulin. Fat. This is your hormone production. Without fat, you're going to really struggle to have healthy hormones, unfortunately. It's also energy. My writing's getting worse as we go. And this does not spike insulin. So, no insulin, nothing. In fact, this can dull the insulin spike of other macronutrients. And then finally, we have got carbs. This is quick energy. Oh, I've forgotten one, satiety. We've got satiety and fullness, similar. So with carbs, we have got quick energy, but unfortunately it spikes blood sugar. And that therefore spikes insulin. I'm going to go insulin on the way up, which tells your body to store fat. So this happens if carbs are eaten in excess. Now, there have been people who have done their own N of 1 experiments. There's also been overfeeding studies which try to feed people as much protein and fat as it possibly can to cause the same weight gain as carbs would. However, everyone who's on the high carb diet and the low fat versus the high fat, low carb diet, these people who are consuming these fats and proteins can eat more than the people who are eating the high carb diet, because all of these have a different impact on your body. Now, that's not to throw out carbs whatsoever. I'm not saying don't eat these are bad. We're going to keep these in, okay? But we need to be more educated about what they can do to your body. The key point here is your metabolism. And I want you to note that both carbs and fats provide energy for the body. We've got two types of energy, and we're going to think of carbs as your kindling. Draw sticks. That's sticks. All right. And then we've got fat, which is like a log. So let's think of this as a little fire for your energy levels. Yay, fire. Carbs are the kindling that you're going to chuck on top, just big bursts of ignited energy. And then we've got fats. This is your slow burning logs that are going to have you feeling stable all day long. So let's say you eat 100 calories of chicken breast. 100 calories of fat, let's say butter, and 100 calories of rice, carbs. Same calories because we're eating 100 calories of each, but here's what's happening inside your body. For protein, your body is going to break down that chicken and it's going to use it to repair your muscle. It's going to keep you feeling full and satisfied for hours, and there's minimal insulin response. With fat, we've got literally zero blood sugar impact from that butter. Your body can use it for energy for longer periods of time or healthy hormone production. Think things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone as well, like your sex hormones, also matter a lot when it comes to fat. And you need fat to function. And it doesn't mess with your insulin, which is your key fat storage hormone. Carbs, within 15 minutes of having that rice, your blood sugar is going to shoot up. Your pancreas raises insulin to deal with it, so you don't have too much sugar in your bloodstream. And the thing is, you can deal with about 1 teaspoon of sugar floating around your bloodstream at any one time. So insulin's job is to either store that as fat for later or use it as quick burning energy. And if you're sedentary, guess where insulin is going to store that? This is the big difference between someone who is an office worker versus someone who's an athlete or very active. A close friend of mine is a horse riding coach, and she will easily get between 25,000 to 30,000 steps a day. She will ride like 5 horses in the morning, and then she'll go teach people in the afternoon. And somewhere in that whole day, she still manages to hit the gym and work with a PT. And she is someone who I would put in the athlete category, where carbs that she's eating is going to go to that immediate energy. They're going to support her all day long. However, she should also not live off of carbs as her only energy supply, because like I said before, we've got the kindling and we've got the nice slow burning log. And I want her to have energy throughout the day, but I also want her to have that quick burst energy when she needs it. So when people say a calorie is a calorie, they're ignoring the entire hormonal response here. And for women over 30, especially if you've got things like PCOS or perimenopause even, or you simply just sit at a desk all day, that insulin response really is everything. And it's exactly why the next thing I'm going to show you matters so much. The thing is that once you understand insulin, you're never going to look at like a healthy low-fat meal the same way again. So let's talk about insulin. So like I said earlier, insulin is your fat storage hormone. Insulin controls whether your body is going to burn fat or store it. Simply put, high insulin equals fat storage, low insulin equals fat burning. And this is an absolute game changer when it comes to calories in, calories out, and why it fails for so many women. It's not just calories, it's insulin. And here's the thing that nobody tells you when they're telling you to just eat 1,600 calories. When your insulin is high, you cannot tap into that fat storage. It's literally locked in place. And I'm just going to put like a little padlock. Oh my God, how the hell do you draw a padlock? And if you don't believe me, go look up metabolic scientist Dr. Ben Bickman, who studied this for a living. In his lab, he cannot make a fat cell gain weight or lose weight without lowering or increasing insulin. You could be in a calorie deficit, working out, doing everything right, but if your insulin is constantly elevated, then you're just going to be running on carbs all day, and your body is like, okay, that's cool. We're not touching the belly fat. We're just storing it instead. And in fact, on those diets, the only real time that your body taps into its body fat is while you're sleeping, because you're fasting. You are giving your insulin a natural time to decrease. And then that's when your body goes, oh, okay, now we can use up some of this fat storage and go into fat burning mode. Then you wake up the next morning and you just spike it again with having oats for breakfast, because you think that that is going to be part of a healthy diet. And I've been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for about a month now. I can tell you, if I start my day off with oats, I am spiking my blood sugar all day long, and it is a massive spike because I'm quite sensitive to carbs. Now, here's the thing. Over about 50% of people in Western countries have some level of insulin resistance. And unfortunately, that means that their bodies will overreact to carbs and sugar. They produce more insulin than they need, which keeps them in high fat storage mode, constantly eating and constantly needing more energy. And I always pull this back to influencers who keep talking about carbs like they're an absolute necessity to eat as the bulk of every meal. Yes, that works for them, but that might not work for you. And I want to make sure you know that there's another way that you can approach this if the other approach has only ever failed you. So let's make this make sense with a bit of a day of eating. Okay, we've got 7 a.m. We're gonna eat breakfast and it's gonna be oats. We're gonna go spike our insulin. This is your insulin. I'm just writing it up here so I do not have to write it all the way down. Okay, oats. Maybe also berries, fruit. I don't know, some kind of fruit. Yep, coffee. Milk has carbs. Let's not forget that as well. I know people think it's a fat. It's like dollop cream is a fat. Milk is carbs and fat. What's happening here is your insulin is spiking. Then we get to 10 a.m. and you're feeling hungry again because the oats have gone up and now they've come down. And if this is your baseline, you're feeling pretty shit when it reaches there. So at 10 a.m., we're going to have like a granola bar because they're healthy, right? Wrong. Granola bars I like to think of as just sugary lollies dressed in activewear. Again, insulin spikes. With that baseline, you were down here, you feel like shit, now you're going back up again. And very soon you'll go back down. Then we've got lunch. And that's, I don't know, 12:30, let's say. And for lunch, we're going to have a sandwich. Easy sandwich, maybe some fruit as well. Because your sandwich is predominantly bread, and unless you're having it with something like a sourdough, which might help you and actually be better for your gut, again, that baseline, once again, we would be spiking and coming back down again after lunch. This is why you're going to get that afternoon like need for a snack. And speaking of an afternoon snack, the dreaded 3 p.m. crash. God, I hate those so much. Let's say you have some crackers. Again, another insulin spike and drop. You see where I'm going with this. Dinner. 6 p.m. We're gonna get home. We're really hungry. Let's have like a pasta bolognese. Again, we're gonna spike and come back down again. And then after 7 p.m., we're gonna have some ice cream. And again, we're gonna spike another time just before we go to bed. And then that's gonna leave us during the night. We'll probably have another spike. We'll probably come back down again. And then we'll just be struggling all night long and you're not gonna get an amazing night's sleep. Trust me, I know, I've been there. I've been tracking this shit. The point is here is that throughout the day, if you're eating these 6 meals, you're never getting the chance to drop back down to, I would say, normal levels, which would be like that all day long. And your body is also never switching into fat burning, you're just stuck. And this is why I had to throw out all of the calories in, calories out idea out the window and just start focusing on insulin control. Because once I started eating that way and I kept my insulin low, more protein, more fat, fewer carbs, and smart fasting windows, my body finally started burning the fat that it had been holding on to for dear life for years. And these days, my insulin is looking pretty good. Well, sorry, my glucose, because you can't measure insulin. I wish I could chuck a continuous insulin monitor on my arm. Those don't exist yet, but hopefully one day they will. These days, if this is my level of glucose during the day, what's usually happening is I'm waking up, it's spiking a little bit because you have got that morning, the dawn effect where your cortisol and your adrenaline rise. That's what makes you wake up. And then I'm just pretty well stable. I usually sit at like a 4.8 to 5 when I'm not eating. And then I might eat something, it'll go up to here, and then my body will just bring it back down to baseline. I'll have my next meal, bring it up, bring it back down to baseline. And then maybe I'll have a dessert later in the night. Barely any impact because of the desserts that I eat are pretty fat-based. So I've been making my own ice cream from home, using predominantly fat with some fruit, and that has been amazing to dull this spike. Now, if you want to learn more about like hacks to make your blood glucose levels look like that instead of what I was showing before, where we've got the 6 meals and you're kind of going here and then you're going up, and another one, another one, another one, another one, another one, all throughout the day, I did another video about glucose hacks and how to level out this throughout the day. Highly recommend giving that one a watch. But here's when it gets more interesting. I mentioned earlier that not everyone reacts to carbs the same way, and just because mine looks like that doesn't mean that yours will, or, now I've sorted it out and it's pretty level. But that's what we're going to talk about next. All right, so individuality when it comes to insulin. Some people will handle carbs great, and others, like me, will just store them as fat immediately. Why? This is because insulin sensitivity varies wildly based on genetics, muscle mass, stress, sleep, and activity level. This explains why your friend eats pizza and stays lean while you gain weight just looking at bread. In fact, I've done a video on this. Highly recommend giving it a watch later. So we've got a number of factors that are going to be impacting your carb tolerance. All of these will impact how your body processes them. And the good thing is you can increase your carb tolerance by improving these factors. Oh, sorry, I forgot one. I've also got age and hormones. Okay, so you know that girl on Instagram who posts those what I eat in a day videos? She's eating like 2,500 calories a day, tons of rice, pasta, dessert, and she's somehow shredded. And you're like, oh my God, if I ate the same thing, I would probably gain 5 kilos overnight. You're not crazy. Here's why she can eat like that. She probably has way more muscle mass than you. Her muscle is her metabolic sink and it is soaking up the glucose like a sponge. She's probably also training 4 to 5 days a week, maintaining a high step count, plus active recovery and lifting heavy. She might also be young. I did age. She has optimized her insulin. Maybe her hormones are a bit different. And genetics, they do play a role in your carb sensitivity. For example, my mom, bless her, but she had gestational diabetes while she was pregnant with me, which leads to me having a high insulin sensitivity to carbs more than the average person. Check out Dr. Tim Noakes for more info on the genetic role in carb sensitivity. It is so interesting, and that's sort of how I figured out how I've got this sensitivity, as well as seeing it on my glucose monitor. But you might have less muscle mass, a sedentary job, 8 hours a day where you're sitting, higher stress levels, maybe some poor sleep, which is leading you to more insulin resistance. You could also be a bit older, maybe in perimenopause, or your hormones could be leading you to have issues like PCOS. So when she eats 250 grams of carbs, her muscles soak it all up and she burns it off no problem. But when you eat 250 grams of carbs, your body is like, oh, hang on, we don't need this right now. Let's store this as fat. This is why comparing yourself to an athlete or an influencer is so damaging. Their carb tolerance is sky high because they've built the metabolic machinery to handle it. If you're sitting at a desk all day and you're trying to eat like them, you're going to be bloated, puffy, and confused and just wondering why none of this is working for you. So, how are we going to figure out your carb tolerance? Because I can't just tell you, oh, drop your carbs to less than 50 grams a day because I did it and it worked for me. Okay, your carb tolerance. Unfortunately, you're going to have to figure this one out on your own. Just kidding. I can help you if you go into the resources below. But you're going to need to experiment and find the carb range that keeps your insulin low and your energy stable. This is a massive thing that I teach as part of the metabolic method. And why? There is unfortunately no one size fits all number. It's totally bio individual. And in fact, some women do poorly with carbs under 50 grams. Some women have even gone carnivore, found amazing results from the start, but then bounced back to a more whole foods approach. Personally, that's what I do because I find keto and carnivore a bit unsustainable for my lifestyle. But I dip in and out of keto depending on my goals. But my carbs will still rarely go over 100 grams a day. So I'm technically always in the low carb category. What you need to do is use your body's feedback. We're going to be using energy, hunger, measurements, and I don't mean scale. I mean like waistline measurements because your scale weight is going to fluctuate drastically depending on what level carbs you eat, just due to water retention. Let's talk about my carb tolerance. So unfortunately, my maintenance, oh my God, this pen is getting so squeaky, is less than 100 grams a day. And when I want to go into fat loss, I will simply drop that a little bit below 50 grams, and then I'll have like a carb cycle day. Simply because I don't want my body to get used to being in ketosis. I want to be able to shock it into the fat loss phase that I want it to be doing. But the rest of the time, I want it to be feeling pretty comfortable here. And then occasionally I'll do a little bit of a high carb day, usually paired with me going out to eat. And why do I have to keep my carbs this low? Unfortunately, my body is more sensitive to glucose. So I want you to use this as a template, not a rule. For me, I can maintain my weight really easily and feel great at around 100 grams of carbs per day. That's like a sweet potato at dinner, some berries with breakfast, and a bit of fruit throughout the day. I feel energized, my waist stays lean, my hunger stays stable. I can also add in some things like a bit of rice, some wraps, some quinoa, things that don't really spike me as much, and pairing them with what I said before about adding them with proteins and fats. When I want to lean out, I do have to drop it down a bit, unfortunately, but that's where my body will tap into fat burning. Why? Because unfortunately, I'm just one of those people who will store carbs as fat very easily. That's just my physiology. Now, someone else might do really well on 150 grams a day. What? 15? No, 150 grams of carbs a day. You have to experiment with your body. Another person might be great losing fat on less than 30 grams a day. Start by tracking your carbs for about a week, not calories, just carbs, and see how you feel at like 100, 150, 50, 30, 75. Do you feel energized or exhausted? Do you feel hungry or full? And then what is your measurements doing? What's going on here? Like, you just need to be obtaining that data. And this is where the environmental stuff also comes in, because your carb tolerance isn't about food necessarily, it's also about how you're living. And unfortunately, we've got your environmental factors: stress, sleep, exercise. If you're stressed out, cortisol goes up, insulin disruption, not S, is disrupted, and or belly fat, unfortunately. Sleep, we've got lack of sleep, we've got hunger goes up, and insulin disrupted again. Exercise, build muscle. We're going to regulate insulin because now we've got a metabolic sink. And this is also going to increase our carb tolerance. So let's say you've dialed in your macros, you're eating 150, 100 grams of carbs a day, plenty of protein and fat, but you are stressed out of your mind, you are barely sleeping, and you're not really getting that much exercise. Unfortunately, you are still going to be struggling. And here's why. When you are chronically stressed, like I said, cortisol through the roof, insulin disrupted. Unfortunately, this makes your body worse at handling carbs. Plus, it drives belly fat storage. If you've ever noticed how you gain weight around your middle when life gets hectic, that is cortisol having an impact on insulin. Just look up Cushing's syndrome. This is the absolute extreme example of this. If you look it up on Google, you will see the body type that I'm talking about. Sleep. Studies have shown that when you sleep for less than 7 to 8 hours per night, your hunger hormones like ghrelin spike, your fullness hormone leptin drops, so your insulin sensitivity will also decrease. You're hungry, you crave carbs and sugar, and your body stores more of it as fat. One study even showed that people who slept less than 5.5 hours a night versus 8.5 lost way more muscle mass and way less fat, even on the exact same diet macro as calories. And then we've got exercise, especially resistance training, building your metabolism up and your metabolic sink. Muscle tissue absorbs 80% of those post-meal glucose spikes. The more muscle you have, the better your body is going to handle carbs. This is why athletes can eat more carbs. They've got the right body to deal with it. So if you're sitting at a desk all day, you're sleeping poorly, and you're stressed to the max, and you're trying to eat like one of these CrossFit athletes, it's just not going to work. You've got to meet yourself where you are in your life. And this is why the real work is not just about food, it's understanding how your body is responding to everything in your environment as well. So let's bring this all back together. You came in here hopefully wondering that, hopefully I was going to give you a number for calories in, calories out. You wanted to know a number. But I'm telling you that that is not the most important thing that you should be looking at. You should be looking at insulin, because that is going to be the key that unlocks, oh God, I'm so shit at drawing, padlock, unlocks your storage of fat. And if you're constantly spiking your insulin with carbs and sugar, your body is locked in fat storage mode, no matter how big your deficit is. The real question you should be asking is, what is my personal carb tolerance? Not Kim's, yours. Am I eating enough protein and fat to stay full and support my hormones as well? Am I managing my stress, my sleep, my movement, so my body can actually use the food that I'm giving it? And honestly, this is why I had to just throw out the old eat less, move more, calories in, calories out model, because women over 30, especially if you've got a desk job like I do, some hormone disruption like I do, or suspected insulin resistance like I did, it's just not that simple. And here's what I want you to do. Start paying attention to how your body responds to carbs. Track your macros for a week, not your calories. Notice your energy, your hunger, your waistline, and just adjust from there. And if you want the full step-by-step framework, how I structure my meals, my fasting windows, my resistance training as well, all of it, I've got resources linked in the description. My full metabolic method guide breaks down everything we talked about today, plus the 6-week plan that I use to lose over 14 kilos and actually keep it off without counting a single calorie. And that's just been amazing for my mental health. So check that out, grab what you need. And if you want to know a little bit more about how to eat carbs without the extreme glucose spikes, then you're going to love this other video that I did where I tested every glucose hack for 2 weeks and share what actually worked. All right, ladies, go crush it. And remember, it's not really about perfection. It's about progress and understanding what works for you. I'll see you in the next one.